I'm Mike, I am 45, I'm married to Helen, I have 3 kids, Amber who's 16, Zac who's 13 and Jacob who's 9. I'm originally from Bristol and I now live here in Newport in Wales. Became a Christian when I was 4, so my mum and dad basically sent me to the local chapel on a Sunday morning, I think more to get rid of me actually than any deep spiritual reason. And then at the age of 4 I remember being sat at the back of the chapel Sunday school room with the Sunday school teacher called Carol Miller, and just really prayed a simple prayer and decided that being Christian is something that I wanted to do and something that I wanted to walk out. And then when I was about 6, Mum started coming to church, and then when I was 10 my dad became a Christian and we went to church as a whole family. So grew up in a little village called Severn Beach, only about 2,000 people, just a little farming community. And yeah, so went to the local junior school where they found out that there was probably some issues with my learning, but back in those days, in the, what would that been, early 80s, I was just labelled as thick and stupid, and my parents were told that I had special needs, and basically they were expecting too much of me because they were Christians. So spent most of my educational life battling with the stigma of being in special needs classes and getting into lots of trouble and getting frustrated. But then eventually when I was about 15, Mum and Dad had actually sent me to a Christian school to kind of calm me down. And they'd said, actually, you're not thick, you're dyslexic. And I went back a year, went back to state school eventually and got some GCSEs and went on and did outdoor pursuits and eventually became a nurse. And you know, throughout my whole younger life, I knew that probably God had set me apart for something different. And that God was calling me to do something. I got radically filled with the Holy Spirit at the age of about 9, and so I knew I had an encounter with God that was life-changing from a very young age, but then probably spent the most of my adult life running away from it. So nursing was good, I was very successful at it. By the grace of God I ended up lecturing at a university in New Zealand where we'd gone to live for a couple of years, and yeah, but I always had this kind of frustration that the church wasn't really fulfilling what it should fulfill in society. And you know, looking back through history, the church has always been leading when it came to medical care, finances, social. Basically, the church was like the social services of a community. And I was just really frustrated that the church wasn't truly operating in that space, that it become almost a kind of religious organization, even modern church, that you could only be part of church if you behaved, and I wanted to form a church that accepted anybody where they were and would walk on a journey with them towards Christ. So eventually this burden grew stronger and stronger inside of me, and my pastor in New Zealand said, I think you should go to Bible college. I wrestled with that for probably 8 or 9 months whilst we were in New Zealand, and just one day in an evening service I was in church and Helen was at home with the kids, and God just met me and said, look, you have a choice. You can either be a very successful nurse or you can be involved in changing a nation. And something of the adventure and the challenge just really broke me to the core, and I cried and all that kind of stuff. And I came home and I said to my wife, I said, our lives are about to change. I think we're going to Bible college. So we both said as a couple, we said, the next conference we go to in a week's time, we will dedicate this conference for God to speak. So we went, put the kids in the kids' church, went into the first meeting, and a guy stood up and spoke called Bruce Monk, who oversees our movement, and he spoke about people using their kids as an excuse not to fulfill their ministry. And that was it. Me and my wife were in floods of tears. God clearly said, your life is never going to be the same, but trust me, you're going to have to give it all up, but I've got something for you. And we went outside to the coffee area, and Steve, the principal of the Bible college, came up, and we just couldn't speak. We were just so overwhelmed by what God was going to do. And he just hugged us and said, I know. And then we went on the journey to become pastors. So did my year at Bible college, and then went and took on a church in a little town called Otaki. And I think that was God's kind of first little training program for me to fulfill this vision of a church that's leading its community. So it was a married community. So I was the only kind of white guy around, and full of, the average age probably in the church when I took it over was probably 80, and we just slowly went on a journey of reaching our community. And we ended up with a youth club of over 100 children from broken homes. We ended up working closely with the police, with the school. We ended up fostering a young boy who was at risk. And over the 3.5 years, we managed to embed that church in the community to a point where my phone number was on every mobile in the police station. The school would make the church the first kind of port of call when they had trouble with youth. And yeah, so we did that. It was really, really hard and really, really stressful, but learned so much. And then we just felt it was time to come back to Wales. So we handed that church over to another couple, and the church has gone from strength to strength. And then when we came here back to Wales, we eventually ended up back here at Faith. And Faith was going through a real hard transition. The leadership were having personal issues, and the church was really hurting. And God says, I want you to take over the church, I want you to love it, I want you to build a community here that not only will change Newport, but will be a model to change Wales. So I've been here 6 years. First 3 years were all about restoring people, transitioning people from the old church to the new church, building a foundation of people that knew what it was to follow a visionary leader. And we ended up in lots of different buildings. We got down to about 20 people. Looking back, at the time that was hard, but looking back now, I can see that God was trying to build solid foundations on which we could grow on. Faith means to me, faith is a description of my trust and security in God. Some days it's based on emotions, and some days it's based on intellect, and some days it's based on both. But all of it is grounded in the fact that I believe in a God that's real. I believe in a God that's provided supernaturally, financially for me and my family. So that's what faith means. Faith is the expression of the security that I have in God.